I saw Eric Schmidt recently saying AI is being underhyped. That if you truly understood the power that we have today and what's going to emerge on the back of recursive, self-programming of AI models,
Yep.
that we're in the midst of this intelligence explosion, and it's about to get really crazy, really fast. So, obviously, Lattice and everything you've built has been a beautiful platform of AI. How much are you thinking about digital superintelligence, just to define that as orders of magnitude more intelligent than human systems?
So Anduril was an AI company back when it wasn't cool to be an AI company. I mean, the name of the company is Anduril Industries. The
Yes.
acronym is literally AI.
Yeah.
But back in 2017, AI was kind of like how VR used to be. Oh, it's always in the future, never in the present. It's the thing for the wacky, crazy people to waste their lives on, not a serious doer to build a company on top of. And I knew that AI was imminent because the smartest people that I knew were telling me that and illustrating it in ways that were very believable, showing how a bunch of schemes that had been improbable for decades were clearly scalable. One of those people was John Carmack, who was the
I love John.
John is
Brilliant.
He's one of the smartest people in the world. Definitely the smartest I know. He basically invented 3D gaming,
Yes.
also started a rocket company,
Yeah.
later became the CTO of Oculus. He created Doom and Quake and basically the modern 3D game engine. And he deeply understands hardware and software. Sorry, just because a lot of people might not know who John is.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. And he had one of our teams in the original Spaceflight X Prize, Armadillo Aerospace.
And they were doing vertical takeoff and landing rockets way before SpaceX.
Right.
I mean, like a decade before SpaceX.
Yeah.
But in terms of super intelligence, John was John. So John ended up leaving Oculus long after I was fired, actually, because he wanted to work on AGI, and he told me and now has said publicly that even though he thinks it was relatively low probability that he would crack the nut, that the impact on humanity would be so fundamental that even a 1% chance of succeeding made it, on a risk, kind of cost benefit and weighted analysis way of looking at it, obviously the right thing to spend his time doing. And so that was one of the reasons I had such confidence starting Anduril and saying, I'm going to build a company. Basically, the whole premise of the company is, okay, take for a given that AI is finally going to work. Take for a given that autonomy is here. What would that mean for the military? And then we've gone about building all the things that assumed it was true. That was really our early advantage. Other companies were not running their programs and their research and development programs as if AI was a real thing. And so a lot of these things we've broken into, it's not that the people in the Air Force were dumb or the people in the Navy were stupid. It's that they were making decisions assuming that AI wasn't going to be real. And once it becomes real, well, that changes everything.
Yeah, and there's a vast difference between an AI native startup and an old school company trying to retrofit.
Trying to ram it in, yeah.
Right, and there's also a difference.
Very different. The company is premised on AI versus just helped by it.
And a founder-led AI premise company. I mean, the advantages that you have and Zuckerberg has and Elon has as a visionary leader, able to say, no, I know this is the way we used to do it. We're changing it. We're going this way now because it's the right way to go.
Yep.
It's impossible for a large-scale public company in the defense industry to make any kind of shifts like that.
Well, I mean, Zuck had an AI research lab of significant size back when all this stuff was considered crazy. So when they opened up their AI research lab where they were doing integrated AI and robotics, I mean, we're talking about like 2014, 2015, they were doing this. And a lot of people, including the public markets, saw it as a folly. They saw it as Mark working on this ridiculous thing, burning money, totally a waste of time. And what it really is it's what you're saying. These founder-led companies can make bets that a hired executive would never make. You would never have a hired CEO from the outside who's also thinking about what his next job is going to be.
Sure.
He's not going to say, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to burn billions of dollars on this technology that everyone thinks is a total waste of time. And I'm going to be punished for it quarter after quarter after quarter. And eventually, someday, it's going to come to bear and everyone's going to say I'm right, because none of those guys are usually even around long enough to see the fruits of that labor. And even if they were, there's probably safer bets they could make. And yeah, founder-led companies can afford to do that. They can afford to say, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway because this is my company and I care more about it than anybody. And I'm going to do the right thing for it in the long run. It's a powerful thing.
It is powerful. Digital superintelligence. Let's define that as, so very famously, we saw AI reaching IQs just above human levels of 101. This was Claude 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then GPT-03 just came in at a 135 IQ. And so the prediction is that Elon's prediction when he was on our stage at the Abundance Summit a couple of years ago is as smart as all humans combined by 2029 or 2030. So that's a vastly accelerated curve.
Yeah.
Are you skating to that, where that curve is going to be? How are you thinking about it?
I'm actually probably running my company a lot more pessimistically than that.
Mm-hmm.
To bet that those most optimistic predictions will come true is probably not a responsible way for me to run my company.
Sure, but a billionfold, 8 billionfold, let's just say, a millionfold smarter than a human.
I think we are operating under the assumption that will happen. And you could pick almost any point in even the last, let's say, 2 years, and people say, well, AI might be getting smarter, but it'll never be able to do this.
Huh.
And then within weeks or maybe months, it's doing it. And they say, well, but this video has this problem. You see, the man has 6 fingers. And so that proves that he will never be able to replace a real illustrator. And then, of course, you wait a couple weeks and all of a sudden that's no longer the case. So I'm not going to be one of those people who bets that we're not going to get there. At the same time, I would say Anduril's thesis makes sense, even if AI doesn't get smarter than a person. I need it to have fast reaction times.
Sure.
I need it to be able to do things, to think much faster. So for example, processing what would have taken a person a month to process, if I can do as good as a person would have done in a month, but do it in a minute, that's a superpower in and of itself for military operations. So I don't actually need things to be super intelligent. I just need them to be better than people at speed, at latency. Also, if I've got a truck and I need a truck to drive itself around, I don't need it to have 135 IQ. 100 IQ is more than enough to drive a truck sufficiently well, especially if it's, 100 IQ that's not distracted, not sleep deprived, never going to be abusing substances. Like that's actually pretty great, especially when you can duplicate it 100,000 times for free, unlike a trained truck driver. Yeah. So I'm not betting my company on super intelligence, but I do believe it will happen.